Welcome, dear my friends, to the hush of this midnight hour. As the world beyond your window falls silent, let the cares of today slip away and allow your mind to drift far back in time. Tonight, on Midnight History, we journey not to the gilded halls of kings or the bustle of royal courts, but to the frost-bitten edges of a peasant's life in the heart of the Middle Ages. This is a world untouched by central heating, glass windows, or the simplest comforts we now take for granted. A world where winter was not a fleeting visitor, but a relentless, unyielding presence. Yet, within the bare walls of humble homes, life endured quietly, stubbornly, and with a resourcefulness that borders on the miraculous. Close your eyes, dear listener, and let the past unfold. Picture a medieval village nestled among low, windswept hills. The trees stand bare, their branches clawing at a sky heavy with the promise of snow. The fields are fallow, the streams glazed with ice, and the air bites at any exposed skin. At the heart of this frozen landscape luster of modest huts, their silhouettes soft against the twilight. These are not homes of brick or stone, but of wattle and daub, sticks woven tightly like baskets, smeared with a rough paste of mud, straw, and animal dung. It's a crude but clever answer to the eternal need for shelter, a testament to human ingenuity in the face of scarcity. Step inside one of these huts, your breath catching in the chill. There's no door as we know it, only a weathered wooden plank that groans on uneven hinges. The walls are rough, their earthy scent mingling with the faint musk of damp straw. No windows grace this home, save for a small hole near the roof, covered by a flap of stitched animal hide. It keeps out some of the wind, but not all. The cold is a cunning intruder, seeping through every crevice, curling around bare ankles and nipping at fingers left uncovered. You pull your cloak tighter, but the chill persists, a reminder of winter's dominion. The floor beneath your feet is not wood or tile, it's the earth itself, packed hard by years of footsteps. In summer, it's dry and dusty. In winter, it's either muddy from melted snow or frozen solid, unyielding underfoot. A thin layer of straw, sometimes mixed with rushes or brittle hay, softens each step, its faint crunch a constant sound in the home. Straw is more than bedding here. It's insulation, flooring, even a filler for clothing. It's the village's quiet hero, a humble ally against the cold. Look up, and you'll see the ceiling, a low, thatched roof woven from reeds and straw, designed to trap what little warmth the home can muster. But the thatch is heavy with snow, sagging under its weight, and it leaks when the rain comes. It's a reluctant host to mice, squirrels, and sparrows, their nests tucked into the crevices. A bird's dropping landing in your stew, or a rodent scampering overhead is not uncommon, just another thread in the tapestry of daily life. This home is a single room, a shared space for all of life's moments. There are no separate bedrooms, no kitchen, no corridors. Here families cook, sleep, birth, and die, all within the same earthen walls. A family of 5 or 6, perhaps more, lives in this cramped embrace. Parents, children, a frail grandparent, and maybe a chicken or two scratching in the corner, their warmth a small but precious gift. Privacy is a concept unknown, a luxury beyond reach. Every breath, every whisper, every snore is shared. At the center of this world is the hearth, the home's fragile heart. It's not a fireplace with a tidy mantel, but a shallow pit ringed with blackened stones, cradling a fire that struggles to burn. The flames are weak, more smoke than heat, curling upward in lazy tendrils. There's no chimney to guide the smoke out, so it escapes through gaps in the thatch or lingers inside, stinging eyes, coating lungs, and leaving a faint char on everything: clothes, hair, the very air. Yet this fire is life itself. Families gather close, their backs turned to the wind, faces flushed by the acrid haze. Children jostle for the warmest spot, their small hands outstretched. Mothers simmer turnips or barley in dented iron pots hung over the coals. Fathers feed the fire with whatever they can scavenge: twigs, peat, even dried dung, when wood is scarce. Firewood is a treasure, hoarded like gold. How do they survive the nights when the fire dwindles and the darkness presses in like a heavy cloak? They stuff the walls' cracks with moss, rags, or clumps of animal hair, goat, sheep, or horse, anything to blunt the wind's sharp edges. They spread thick layers of straw on the floor, topping it with worn cloaks or burlap sacks, creating a makeshift bed. The family sleeps close, so close, their bodies a tangle of warmth. Children nestle between parents, infants swaddled in scraps of wool and linen, their tiny noses peeking out like frost-kissed buds. No one sheds their clothes for bed. They wear every layer they own: wool tunics, linen undershirts, cloaks stiffened by weather and time. These garments, often unwashed for weeks, are not about comfort but survival. The dirt and sweat trapped in the fabric form a strange insulation, holding in the body's fleeting heat. To undress is to invite the cold's deadly embrace. Scarves, knitted from scraps, are wound around necks and heads. Hats, if they have them, stay on even in sleep, guarding against the loss of precious warmth. Gloves are rare, but hands are tucked into sleeves or wrapped in cloth. Socks are a luxury few possess. Some bind their feet in rags, then slip them into wooden clogs stuffed with straw for extra warmth. Others master the art of the hearthstone, heating flat rocks in the fire and carrying them carefully to bed. A stone too hot scorches the skin. One too cold is useless. It's a delicate balance, a nightly ritual born of necessity. In the coldest months, the family welcomes animals inside, not just to protect them from thieves, but for their heat. A cow huddles by the wall, a pig snuffles near the door, chickens roost on beams. Their breath clouds the air, their bodies radiate warmth, and their odor, however sharp, is a small price to pay for survival. Morning comes slowly, the hut encrusted with frost, breath visible in the dim light. The family stirs, limbs stiff, noses red, clothes damp from sweat and condensation. The fire is a pile of ash, its embers barely alive. A child, shivering, crawls from the pile of bodies to coax the flames back, blowing gently on the coals, feeding them twigs with trembling hands. The task is urgent. Without fire, the day cannot begin. This is not a story of despair, dear listener, but of quiet resilience. These people, with their straw and wool, their dung and ingenuity, found ways to outlast winter's cruelty. They knew which wall let in the most wind and how to patch it with frozen fingers. They knew how to bank a fire with ash to keep it smoldering till dawn. They knew how to sleep like interlocking pieces, sharing warmth as naturally as breath. They knew how to layer rags, to breathe through scarves, to make do with what little they had. In that knowledge there was a kind of peace, a hard-won wisdom passed down through generations of aching bones and frost-bitten toes. As you lie in your warm bed tonight, dear listener, wrapped in soft blankets and bathed in gentle heat, spare a thought for those who came before. They faced the howling wind, the creeping frost, and the endless dark, yet greeted each morning with a stubborn pride. Surviving the coldest nights of history wasn't just about fire or wool, it was about heart, about the unyielding will to live. Let their world enfold you now, soft and heavy, like a quilt stitched from their lives. Picture the snow-dusted village, the glow of a struggling fire, the weight of a cloak on your shoulders. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every warm breath was a victory. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the whistle of the wind, the crackle of the hearth, the murmur of a family's dreams fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now, as we linger in this frozen corner of history, ready to dream of their enduring light. The hearth's fragile glow. As the embers of your day fade, dear listener, settle into the stillness of this moment. Let your breath slow, aligning with the rhythm of the night, and allow the chill of the world to slip from your mind. Tonight, we return to the heart of a medieval village, to the smoky, resilient confines of a peasant's hut, where warmth was not a guarantee, but a treasure wrested from winter's grasp. Welcome back to Midnight History, where we step into a world of mud and thatch, where every flicker of flame was a quiet defiance against the cold. Close your eyes and let the past unfold, soft and steady like the glow of a dying fire. Picture a hut in the year 1380, its walls of woven sticks and hardened mud standing firm against the howling wind. The thatched roof sags under a blanket of snow, and the air outside is sharp, biting at any exposed skin. Inside, the heart of this home is the hearth, a humble circle of blackened stone set into the earthen floor, or sometimes just a shallow pit scratched into the dirt. It's not a grand fireplace with a mantel or a flue. There's no chimney to guide the smoke skyward. Instead, the smoke drifts lazily, curling through the rafters, seeping through gaps in the thatch, or lingering in the air like a ghostly guest. Stand too long inside, and your eyes water, your throat stings, and your cloak carries the scent of charred wood for days. The walls are streaked with soot, the air heavy with the tang of fire. But this is no flaw. It's the price of survival. The hearth is the pulse of the home. It's where light is born, where warmth is kindled, where meals are cooked, and where families gather to share the weight of the day. When the sun dips below the horizon and winter's icy fingers press against the walls, one question hangs in the air. Will the fire last the night? To lose the fire in the depths of winter is to lose the battle against the cold, to surrender to a darkness that bites deeper than hunger. And so, each evening, the family begins a ritual as old as the seasons themselves, banking the fire. This is no careless act, but a delicate art passed down through generations. As the last pot of pottage simmers low and the household grows quiet, someone, often the mother or the eldest child, kneels by the hearth. With a stick or a charred piece of iron, they gently rake the glowing embers into a tight mound, coaxing them into a compact heart of heat. Then, with the care of tucking a child into bed, they spread a thin layer of ash over the coals. Ash is a master insulator, starving the fire of just enough oxygen to keep it smoldering, alive but dormant, a hidden spark waiting for dawn. This is the medieval way of pausing a flame, a quiet promise that warmth will endure. But the fire demands vigilance. Some families take turns keeping watch, dozing lightly with one ear tuned to the hearth's faint crackle. A child might be tasked with the night's guard, sitting cross-legged in the smoky dark, poking the coals with a twig to keep them alive. It's a heavy responsibility. Falling asleep risks letting the fire die, leaving the family to wake in a hut as cold as the fields outside. Worse, a dead fire means starting from scratch in the morning, a grueling task of striking flint against steel with numb fingers, coaxing a spark onto tinder, and praying it catches. The child on watch fights sleep, their breath visible in the dim light, whispering to themselves or murmuring a prayer to Saint Brigid, the protector of hearths, for strength. When the banking is done well, when the embers hold their glow through the night, the morning brings a small victory. A few dry twigs, a careful puff of breath, and the fire flares back to life, a phoenix rising from its ashen nest. The family gathers, their faces softened by relief, as the hut begins to warm once more. It's a moment of quiet pride, a reminder that survival is built on these small, deliberate acts. Yet a single hearth in a drafty hut can't warm an entire room. Its heat radiates in a narrow cone, a fleeting gift that fades with distance. Sit close, and your face might flush while your back shivers. Step too far, and you're as cold as the goats huddled outside. The family adapts, their ingenuity a shield against winter's cruelty. One of their simplest yet most effective tools is the heated stone, a rustic marvel born of necessity. After supper, a flat, smooth stone, chosen carefully to avoid cracks, is placed in the fire's heart. It rests there, soaking up the flame's warmth, glowing faintly as the coals embrace it. When the stone is nearly too hot to touch, someone retrieves it, using tongs, a stick, or a folded rag to avoid burns. Wrapped in layers of cloth or nestled in a clay pot, the stone is carried to bed, slipped under a blanket, or placed near feet on a straw mattress. It's a medieval heating pad, crude but radiant, its warmth seeping into chilled bones. For those first precious moments, as you lie bundled in every layer you own, Your toes bask in a fleeting bliss, a whisper of comfort in a world of hardship. But the stone is not without risks. If poorly wrapped, it can scorch cloth, straw, or skin, leaving blisters or smoldering bedding. A flawed stone might crack under the heat, splitting with a sharp pop and scattering hot fragments across the room. Village tales, some exaggerated, tell of children waking to smoking mattresses or parents hopping in pain after a stone burned their heel. Yet the risk is worth it, for the alternative, unrelenting cold, is far worse. Another clever invention is the hay box, a wooden chest packed with straw that serves as an early thermos. A pot of hot stew or porridge, fresh from the hearth, is buried deep in the hay, surrounded by layers of insulation and sealed tight. The trapped heat keeps the food warm for hours, sometimes until dawn. Some families, struck by inspiration, realized the hay box's potential beyond cooking. They created smaller versions, lined with hay and filled with heated bricks or stones, to serve as bedside warmers. These rustic devices, smelling faintly of straw and occasionally harboring a flea, brought a touch of warmth to the night, a peasant's answer to winter's bite. Feet, always vulnerable, demand special care. Without thermal socks or insulated boots, keeping toes from frostbite is a daily mission. Peasants wrap their feet in scraps of wool or cloth, sometimes tucking them into baskets of straw like delicate eggs. Children, in moments of desperate creativity, slip their feet into old cooking pots warmed by the fire, giggling at the oddity of it. Every solution, no matter how strange, is a step toward survival. The fire's smoke, ever present, is both curse and ally. It blackens rafters, clings to clothes, and fills the hut with a haze that stings eyes and rasps lungs. The elderly cough, their chests heavy with years of inhaled soot. Yet no one complains, for smoke is a silent protector. It repels fleas, ticks, and lice, preserves meat hanging in the rafters, and dries herbs strung above the hearth. Over time, it even strengthens the mud walls, coating them in a thin, protective layer. In the delicate balance of medieval life, smoke is both burden and blessing. But beyond its practical gifts, the hearth is a gathering place, a beacon of connection. At night, families draw close, their bodies a shield against the cold. They mend clothes, share stories, and whisper prayers, their voices mingling with the fire's soft crackle. Grandparents spin tales of legendary winters, of snowdrifts taller than houses and wolves howling in the woods. Children listen, wide-eyed, their toes tucked under cloaks or nestled in a sibling's warmth. The hearth, with its smoke and fleeting heat, binds them together. A reminder that survival is not just about enduring, it's about presence, about the shared glow of human connection. As you rest in your warm bed tonight, dear listener, wrapped in soft blankets and the hum of modern comfort, spare a thought for those who tended embers like precious jewels. They warmed their bones with stones, stories, and the heat of each other's breath, never letting the fire die. Let their world cradle you now, soft and smoky, like a memory of resilience. Picture the hut, the flicker of the hearth, the weight of a heated stone in your hands. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every flame was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the crackle of the fire, the murmur of a family's dreams, the sigh of the wind fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now, as we linger in this glowing corner of history, ready to dream of their enduring light. The warmth within, a medieval dinner. Let the clamor of the world fade, dear listener. As the night wraps you in its gentle embrace, let your breath slow, matching the quiet rhythm of the dark. Tonight, we slip back into the heart of a medieval village, to the smoky, stubborn warmth of a peasant's hut, where every meal was a small act of defiance against winter's cruelty. Welcome to Midnight History, where we explore a simple yet essential thread of survival. Food, not feasts or banquets, but the humble dinner, a meal that could mean the difference between shivering through the night and finding a fleeting moment of comfort. Close your eyes and drift with me to a modest dwelling in 1380. lit only by the flickering glow of a hearth. Outside, the wind howls, clawing at the wooden door like a restless spirit. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of earth, smoke, and something simmering in a soot-stained pot. The walls of woven sticks and mud stand firm, though the cold seeps through every crack. The thatched roof creaks under the weight of snow, and the floor, bare earth scattered with straw, feels like ice beneath your feet. This is not a place of luxury, but of endurance, where every bite is a shield against the frost. Dinner in this world is not a grand affair. There are no platters of roasted pheasant, no pies brimming with spiced apples, no clinking goblets passed among guests. Instead, there's porridge, lumpy, gray, and unapologetically plain. It's made from barley or oats, scraped from the bottom of the family's stores after the last harvest. A pinch of salt, added with care, teases out a hint of flavor. If the family is fortunate, a few chunks of turnip, onion, or carrot float in the mix. Their muted colors a reminder of warmer days. This is the cornerstone of the evening meal. A dish known by many names: oat porridge, barley gruel, or, in better years, a thick stew of root vegetables. Turnips, parsnips, and leeks, hardy crops that endure the cold months, are the backbone, filling bellies with weight and warmth. Beside the porridge, there might be bread, but not the soft, airy loaves of today. These are dense, chewy slabs of rye or barley, tough enough to challenge even the strongest teeth. Baked in communal ovens, often just once a week, the loaves grow stale and hard by midweek, requiring a soak in the stew to make them edible. They're not delicious, but they're reliable, a steadfast ally in the fight against hunger. In a world where scarcity is a constant shadow, dependability is a kind of beauty. The meal's purpose goes beyond nourishment. In the brutal winters of the Middle Ages, when the fire flickered too faintly and the cold sank into your bones, what you ate could warm you from within. Heavy, starchy foods like porridge and bread stoked the body's inner furnace, a process we now call thermogenesis, but which peasants understood through lived experience. They knew, without scientific terms, that a full stomach meant a warmer night. Going to bed hungry wasn't just uncomfortable, it left you vulnerable, your body too weak to fend off the cold. A bowl of hot gruel, however plain, was a lifeline, its warmth spreading from the belly outward, easing aching limbs and soothing stiffened backs. The family gathers around the hearth, their faces lit by the fire's glow. A wooden bowl is passed from hand to hand, each person scooping a portion of porridge with a shared spoon. The bread is broken, its crusts softened in the steaming broth. The meal is eaten in near silence, not out of reverence but necessity. Every bite is a moment to savor, to store against the night ahead. Children, their cheeks flushed from the fire's heat, eat quickly, their small hands clutching crusts like treasures. The elderly savor each spoonful, their movements slow, their eyes fixed on the flames. This is not a feast, but it is a ritual, a quiet act of care that binds the family together. Yet, eating heavily before bed has its quirks. In a cramped hut, where 5 or 6 people share a single straw bed, the consequences of a hearty meal are impossible to ignore. Turnips, beans, and barley are filling, but they spark a symphony of digestion. As the family lies shoulder to shoulder, wrapped in wool and cloaks, the night hums with soft creaks, faint snores, and the unmistakable low notes of flatulence. It's not a source of shame, but a natural part of the winter's lullaby, mingling with the pop of the fire and the rustle of straw. This is survival's music, unpolished but honest, a reminder that life persists even in its messiest moments. The meal's effects linger in other ways. Heavy, starchy foods can stir vivid dreams, and in a world steeped in faith and superstition, dreams were more than fleeting images. To the medieval mind, they were messages, divine warnings, omens, or glimpses of the spirit world. A dream of wolves circling the hut, of faces in the snow, or of a child floating above the fire might be blamed on an overcooked turnip or too much stew. More often, it was seen as a sign, a call to pray harder or confess a hidden sin. But in truth, These visions were likely the mind's way of wrestling with discomfort, a lumpy mattress, a crowded bed, or a belly working overtime. The sleeping arrangements amplify the meal's role. In a peasant's hut, there's no separate bedroom, no private space. The family sleeps in one room, their bodies arranged around the hearth like petals around a flame. Children nestle between parents, their small forms soaking up shared warmth. The elderly claim the spot closest to the fire, their frail bones craving its heat. The strongest adults take the outer edges, their bodies a barrier against drafts. The bed is a pile of straw on the earthen floor, sometimes framed by rough wood, sometimes just a heap covered with sacks. Blankets are scarce, so cloaks and tunics double as covers. Everyone sleeps fully clothed, their wool and linen layers a shield against the cold. This is not comfort, but strategy, a geometry of survival. A full belly plays a crucial role in this equation. Warm food fuels warm bodies, and warm bodies reduce the risk of frostbite, illness, or worse. Each bite of porridge, each crumb of bread, is a step toward seeing spring. The meal is not just sustenance, it's a spark, a fire kindled within to complement the one in the hearth. Children, restless as ever, test the arrangement. They wiggle, whisper, or giggle, prompting hushed warnings from parents. Be still, or you'll let the cold in. Cover your brother's feet. Stop huffing like a dog, you'll fog the air. Slowly the hut quiets, the sounds of digestion and sleep weaving together. The fire's embers glow faintly, the straw creaks, and the family's breaths rise and fall in unison, a human cocoon against the night. In the dead of night, someone might stir, thirsty, chilled, or roused by a strange dream. They sit up, rubbing their eyes, and glance at the hearth where the coals are fading. If the fire is too low, they nudge a sibling, your turn to tend the embers. Or they reach for a stone, still warm at the bed's edge, its heat a small comfort. But most nights, they sleep, fitfully but securely, knowing their bellies are full enough to carry them through. The cold prowls outside, but for now, it hasn't won. As you lie in your soft bed, dear listener, perhaps sipping tea or tucked beneath warm blankets, think of that ancient meal. The gray porridge, the stubborn bread, the turnip stew. It was not elegant, but it was mighty. It was fire stored in the body, a final defense against the frost. In those huts, dinner was more than food. It was a ritual of survival, a gesture of love, a preparation for the battle against winter's relentless chill. Let their world enfold you now, soft and smoky, like the memory of a shared meal. Picture the hut, the glow of the hearth, the weight of a warm bowl in your hands. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every bite was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the crackle of the fire, the hum of a full belly, the sigh of a sleeping family fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now as we linger in this nourishing corner of history, ready to dream of their enduring strength. As your breathing slows and the darkness deepens around you, dear listener, let the cares of the day dissolve. Allow your mind to drift far back to a winter etched in frost and memory, where the wind howled and the stars hid behind heavy clouds. Tonight we return to the heart of a medieval hut, where a figure adjusts the folds of a woolen cloak, stiff with wear, heavy with the scent of smoke and time. Welcome to Midnight History, where we uncover a peculiar yet practical truth. In the depths of a 14th century winter, peasants embraced filth, not out of neglect, but as a shield against the cold. Staying dirty, it turns out, may have saved their lives. In our modern world, cleanliness is a virtue, woven into daily rituals of hot showers, fragrant soaps, and whirring washing machines. But in the Middle Ages, especially during the bitter months of January and February, cleanliness was a risk few could afford. To be clean was to be cold, and to be cold was to court death. Bathing, fresh clothing, and spotless linens, luxuries we take for granted, were distant dreams for the average peasant. Instead, they relied on grime, smoke, and ingenuity to survive, turning what we might see as filth into a strange kind of armor. Picture a modest hut in a snow-draped village, its walls of wattle and daub patched with mud and straw. The thatched roof groans under the weight of frost, and the air inside is thick with the tang of earth and fire. Bathing is not a daily habit here. Public bathhouses found in some larger towns are rare, expensive, and impractical in winter. Fetching water from a frozen stream, hauling it to the hut, and heating it over a reluctant fire is a Herculean task. Stripping down in a room with no insulation where the cold seeps through every crack is an invitation to illness. Most peasants, with a practical shrug, ask themselves, why bother? And so they don't. Baths are taken sparingly, perhaps once a season or less. Instead, people clean themselves with rough cloths, rubbing their skin with dry herbs like lavender or sage to mask odors. More often, they simply add another layer of clothing, letting the accumulated dirt, sweat, ash, and dust form a natural barrier. This grime, far from a failure, serves a purpose. It insulates the skin, sealing in body heat and shielding against the biting wind. Some even believe that washing in winter invites sickness, a notion not entirely wrong. Cold water on bare skin, without a way to dry and warm afterward, can lead to chills, fevers, or worse. In this world, dirt is not a mark of shame. It's a layer of protection, a second skin forged by necessity. Clothing tells a similar story. Imagine preparing for the coldest night of the year with only what you own. No stores, no new purchases, just the garments your family has stitched, bartered, or patched from scraps. You begin with a linen undershirt, coarse and itchy but lightweight. Over it, you pull a woolen tunic, thick and heavy, followed by another if you have it. A cloak, woven from sheep's wool and perhaps lined with rabbit fur if you're fortunate, drapes over your shoulders. Your legs are wrapped in hose, long woolen stockings, or layered cloth, patched until they resemble patchwork quilts. Feet are slipped into leather shoes or wrapped in thick rags, often stuffed with straw for extra warmth. Every layer is a lifeline, not a fashion statement. Clothing is survival, a bulwark against the frost. These garments are not changed often. Many peasants wear the same clothes for days, even weeks, without removing them. They work in them, eat in them, sleep in them. Taking them off at night is too risky. Exposing the body to the cold could sap what little warmth you've preserved. The smell, a potent blend of smoke, sweat, livestock, and damp wool, is ever present. But in a village where everyone smells the same, it's barely noticed, just another thread in the fabric of winter life. The odor is not a flaw, but a fact, accepted as part of being human in a world without running water or deodorant. Laundry is another ordeal. In summer, washing clothes is already grueling. Hauling water from wells or rivers, heating it over a fire, scrubbing with ash or harsh lye soap, and beating garments against rocks. In winter, the task becomes nearly impossible. Rivers freeze, wells ice over, and the wind turns wet cloth into rigid boards. Drying clothes is a nightmare. Hanging them outside risks freezing them solid, while indoors, the cramped hut offers no space. Draping wet garments near the hearth fills the air with steam and dampness, making the room feel colder. Most peasants avoid washing altogether during the winter months. They spot clean with dry cloths, scrape off caked mud, or turn shirts inside out to extend their use. The hearth's smoke, curling through the air, acts as a natural fumigant, killing fleas and softening odors. It's not glamorous, but it's effective, a practical compromise in a season of scarcity. These unwashed clothes become more than protection, they become storytellers. A tunic bears the black smudges of countless fires, its sleeves worn thin from stirring pots. A cloak, smooth at the elbows, carries the memory of cradling children through long nights. A wool cap, frayed and flecked with hay, tells of days spent tending livestock. Clothing is not just a shield, but a chronicle, soaked in the history of daily survival. When a garment finally wears out, split at the seams or reduced to threads, it's not discarded, it's mended, patched, or repurposed. A tattered cloak becomes a blanket, an old sock wraps a heated stone for the bed. Nothing is wasted. Every scrap is precious, a testament to the peasant's resourcefulness. There's even a kind of beauty in this necessity, a patchwork fashion born of survival. A scarf borrowed from a neighbor, a tunic sewn from a cousin's cast-off, a belt patched with mismatched cloth. These create a layered, eclectic collage. Colors fade into one another. Fabrics of different origins blend under the weight of stitches. It's not elegant by modern standards, but it's real, a living mosaic of endurance. The peasant's winter wardrobe, bulky and smudged, is a fortress of wool and grit, guarding against wind, hunger, and the relentless march of time. The hut hums with life despite the cold. The fire crackles, its smoke weaving through the air, settling into every fold of fabric. Livestock shuffle in the corner, their breath adding warmth to the room. Children nestle into their parents' laps, their small bodies tucked beneath shared cloaks. The cold presses in, sneaking through cracks in the mud walls, but warmth endures. Not from soap or silk, but from the stubborn resilience of unwashed layers, shared breath, and the quiet blessing of filth. As you lie in your clean sheets, dear listener, warmed by the hum of modern comforts, take a moment to honor those who faced winter with grit, wool, and a refusal to surrender. Their bodies were weary, their clothes heavy with the scent of smoke and survival, but their hearts burned with a quiet fire, unquenched by the frost. Let their world wrap around you now, soft and smoky like a cloak stitched from their lives. Picture the hut, the glow of the hearth, the weight of a patched tunic on your shoulders. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every layer was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the crackle of the fire, the rustle of wool, the murmur of a family's dreams fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now, as we linger in this gritty corner of history, ready to dream of their enduring strength. As the world falls silent and your breath finds the rhythm of the night's hush, dear listener, let your mind wander back, far back, to a winter carved from frost and endurance. The wind howls beyond the walls, the stars veiled by thick clouds, and in the dim corner of a medieval hut, someone adjusts the folds of a worn woolen cloak, its fibers heavy with smoke and memory. Tonight, on Midnight History, we weave a tale not of kings or conquests, but of survival through closeness, of families and communities bound together against the coldest months, wrapped not only in wool, but in the unbreakable ties of one another. Imagine a single-room hut in 1380, its thatched roof sagging under a mantle of snow. The walls, thin and patched with mud, straw, and dung, stand as a fragile barrier against the wind's relentless assault. At the center, a hearth glows faintly, its embers casting trembling shadows, its smoke curling through the air before escaping through a gap in the roof. The air is thick with the scent of burnt wood, damp earth, and the musky warmth of life. This is not a place of solitude or despair, but of fullness, full of breath, of bodies, of a stubborn will to endure. In a medieval peasant's home, solitude was a luxury few could afford, and in winter, it was a danger no one dared embrace. To sleep alone was to sleep cold, and to sleep cold was to invite death's quiet approach. So the family gathered, parents, children, grandparents, sometimes cousins or neighbors whose fires had failed or whose roofs had succumbed to the snow. The hut, small and smoky, became a haven of shared survival, a living fortress against the frost. The animals joined them, their presence both practical and comforting. A pig, plump and drowsy, dozes near the hearth, its snores a soft counterpoint to the wind. A goat, tethered loosely, adds its steamy breath to the air. Chickens, nestled in baskets, rustle and cluck, their small bodies lending warmth. On the harshest nights, a cow might stand by the wall, its bulk a radiant wall of heat. All are crammed into this low-ceilinged space, sharing the same thin air, their mingled breaths weaving a tapestry of life. In this crowded chaos, there is not confinement but comfort, a reminder that survival is a collective act. Night falls early in winter, the darkness swallowing the village before the evening meal is done. Supper is simple, A thick barley stew, perhaps, or turnips boiled until soft, served in wooden bowls, passed from hand to hand. When the last spoonful is scraped clean, the family prepares for bed, not as individuals but as a community bound by ritual. Blankets, if they have them, are spread over the straw bedding, itchy and uneven but carefully arranged. Cloaks, unfastened from weary shoulders, are draped over the pile, their weight a shared shield. The straw is fluffed, the hearth checked, and the family begins to settle. Their movements a quiet choreography honed by necessity. They don't lie down separately, each claiming their own space. Instead, they layer themselves like a living quilt, building a structure designed to capture and hold every ounce of body heat. At the center are the most vulnerable, the youngest children, the elderly, the frail, tucked tightly to shield them from drafts. Around them, the stronger bodies form a protective ring. Parents, older siblings, aunts, or uncles, their sturdy frames bearing the cold to guard those within. The arrangement is deliberate, strategic. Children nestle between adults, their small forms soaking up warmth. Grandparents, wrapped in shawls, rest closest to the fire, a heated stone at their feet. Feet point toward the hearth, shoulders touch, and every inch of contact is a precious exchange of heat. Privacy is a foreign concept here, as is shame. The smells, human sweat, animal musk, smoky wool, and earthen damp, are strong but familiar, the scent of safety, of home. When the wind rattles the wooden shutter or howls like a beast in the night, the huddle only tightens. A child might whimper, soothed by a mother's low, wordless lullaby. A father might murmur a prayer to Saint Anthony or the Virgin Mary, asking for one more dawn, one more flame, one more chance to rise. These nights are not easy, but they are bearable because they are faced together. Beyond the hut, the village mirrors the spirit of communal survival. Tightly knit and fiercely stubborn, neighbors watch over one another. If a family's fire dies, a neighbor arrives with a glowing ember, carried carefully in a clay pot. If a widow's roof leaks, young men patch it with reeds under the flicker of torchlight, their breath clouding in the cold. Children, bundled in oversized scarves, run errands with pink cheeks and bright eyes, carrying messages or bartering small goods. In the market, food is sometimes shared without coin, a loaf of bread traded for kindling, a clutch of eggs for a scrap of cloth. Not always, but often enough to keep hunger's sharpest edges at bay. Winter is not just a season, it's a shared challenge, and no one faces it alone. Even sleep is a collective act. Some families take turns tending the hearth through the darkest hours, one or two members sitting up to poke the embers or feed them twigs, peat, or dried dung. They might whisper to each other, sharing stories of warmer days, or sit in silence, listening to the steady breathing of those they love. A sleeper might stir, roused by a dream or a chill, and instinctively pull a blanket tighter over a child's shoulders. Another might shift to ease the pressure of straw against a sibling's back, a small, unnoticed act of care. These are the quiet gestures of devotion, the unspoken vows that bind a family through the night. In this crowded, smoky space, squeezed between a grunting pig and a snoring elder, there is warmth, not just from bodies but from bonds. There's comfort in the closeness, in the soft rise and fall of shared breath, in the weight of an arm draped across your shoulder. There's safety in the scratch of wool against your cheek, in the knowledge that you're not alone in the dark. The cold prowls outside, its fingers probing every crack, but within the hut, the family holds fast, their warmth a defiant flame against the frost. They make it through, night after night, one shared breath at a time. The wind may howl, the fire may dwindle, but the huddle endures, a living testament to the power of togetherness. In a world where survival demands everything, the simple act of lying close, of sharing heat and hope, is a quiet miracle. As you rest in the gentle warmth of your own room, dear listener, perhaps wrapped in soft sheets or cradled by silence, spare a thought for those who braved winter with nothing but each other. Their beds were rough, their air thick with smoke, their nights alive with the sounds of life, but their warmth was real. born not from luxury, but from connection. In their closeness, they found something our modern world often overlooks, something sacred, something simple. The strength of shared survival. Let their world enfold you now, soft and heavy, like a cloak woven from their lives. Picture the hut, the glow of the hearth, the tangle of bodies beneath a shared blanket. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every shared breath was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the crackle of the fire, the murmur of a lullaby, the steady rhythm of a family's dreams fade into silence. Whispers in the dark, medieval winter prayers. Close your eyes, dear listener, if you haven't already. Let the air around you grow still, the flicker of daily thoughts fading into the hush of night. Tonight we step away from the warmth of the hearth and the comfort of animal breath. Instead, we kneel in a circle of shadows within a medieval hut, whispering to the darkness, seeking solace not in fire, but in faith. Welcome to Midnight History, where we explore the trembling rituals that shielded peasants from the fears of winter nights, weaving a quilt of belief to warm their souls. It's 1380, and winter has settled over the village like a heavy cloak. Frost clings to the wooden beams of a modest hut, and breath rises in ghostly wisps, curling in the dim light. The cold is more than discomfort, it's a silent threat, a predator lurking just beyond the door. With it comes fear. Fear that the fire will die, that sickness will creep in, that this night might be the one from which you don't wake. In this world of uncertainty, where darkness swallows the hours and the wind howls with ancient menace, faith becomes a shield, a soft armor against the unknown. Before sleep, the family turns to rituals, not grand ceremonies draped in gold, but humble gestures as vital as breath itself. The hut is small, its walls of mud and woven sticks, patched with dung and rags to block the wind. A hearth smolders at the center, its embers glowing faintly, casting trembling shadows. The air smells of burnt wood, damp straw, and the musky warmth of life, human and animal alike. As the day draws to a close, the family gathers, their faces softened by the fire's dim light. Supper, perhaps a bowl of barley gruel or boiled turnips, is finished, and the ritual of prayer begins, a sacred pause before the surrender to sleep. They kneel on the earthen floor, strewn with straw, their knees pressing into the cold. Heads bow, hearts are crossed, and whispers rise like a lullaby woven from hope and fear. Someone reaches for a small wooden cross, tucked into a nook above the hearth, its surface worn smooth by countless hands. Another lights a vigil candle, a single flame trembling in the draught, its wax a precious offering saved for these moments. The candle's glow is fragile, swaying with every gust that sneaks through the walls, but it holds, a tiny beacon in the dark. Then comes the holy water, kept in a chipped clay vessel, perhaps blessed at the last Sunday Mass. A grandmother, her fingers gnarled from years of toil, dips them into the water and scatters droplets across the room. Over the hearth, the straw bedding, the corner where the animals sleep, and the floor itself. This is not a cleansing, but a warding, a plea for protection against the cold, the spirits, and the vast unknown that winter brings. Children, barely old enough to form full sentences, recite bedtime prayers taught as soon as they could speak. One such prayer, passed down through generations, echoes softly. God, keep our fire alight, guard us from the winter's bite, watch us through the darkened hours, till the dawn with gentle powers. It's not scripture, but it's sacred, a simple verse that carries the weight of survival. The words are a ritual, a thread tying the family to something greater, a hope that morning will come. The medieval night is a realm of mystery, where the absence of light and sound makes the world feel suspended, as if holding its breath. In this stillness, faith is not just belief, it's armor, a quilt stitched from trust in God, in saints, in the promise of dawn. It's a belief in waking, in enduring, in outlasting the cold. Certain saints are invoked with special fervor during these frozen vigils. Saint Blaise, protector against throat ailments, is a favorite, his name whispered by mothers as they tucked children beneath cloaks, pressing kisses to feverish foreheads. Saint Brigid, guardian of the hearth, is called upon not with formal prayers but with desperate pleas. Keep the fire burning, Brigid. Let it hold till dawn. Her name is a lifeline, spoken with the urgency of those who know a dead fire means a colder, harder morning. Saint Nicholas, long before his transformation into a jolly gift-giver, is a shield against ruin, a patron against sudden death. In huts where winter can bring devastation overnight, his presence feels as vital as the embers themselves. Some families add tangible tokens of faith. They chalk symbols above the door, crosses or simple runes etched with ash or clay. Others tie scraps of ribbon, colored thread, or blessed herbs to the bedframe, their faint rustle a reminder of hope. These are not superstitions, but living traditions, small acts of defiance against the darkness. To sleep in this world is not merely rest, it's surrender, a leap of trust in the saints, the sky, and each other. The prayers are murmured in a mix of languages, Latin phrases half-remembered from Mass, local dialects woven with personal pleas. Fathers recite fragments of the Pater Noster, their voices low and halting. Mothers, tucking heated stones beneath their children's feet, whisper promises. We'll wake, the sun will rise, just hold on. A child, clutching a sibling's hand, might ask, will the fire stay alive? The answer, soft but certain, is always, yes, if we pray. The vigil candle burns low, its flame casting dancing shadows. The wind hums outside, a restless spirit testing the walls. Beneath it all, the silence of belief hums like a hymn, steady and unbroken. Even the animals seem to sense the moment's weight. The goat nuzzles closer, its breath warm against the straw. The dog curls tighter, its tail tucked beneath its body. The pig, nestled by the hearth, offers a single grunt before falling still. When the fire pops or hisses, someone stirs, roused from the edge of sleep. They add a twig to the coals, their breath visible in the dim light, and whisper once more into the dark. Dear God, just a little longer. These are not grand acts of devotion, but quiet, persistent offerings, the faith of the frostbitten, the soot-stained, the weary. They are the prayers of those who know hunger, who feel the cold in their bones, yet refuse to let fear win. When the wind howls and the night presses in, the soft weight of a whispered prayer is something to cling to, a thread of hope in a world of shadows. Each morning is a quiet miracle. As the first pale light seeps through the cracks, the family stirs, their breath clouding in the chill. If the fire still glows, it's met with murmurs of gratitude. If it's gone cold, it's mourned with urgent resolve, the task of rekindling it a pressing need. But the true moment of triumph comes with the count. 1, 2, 3, all present. Eyes open, fingers flex, toes wiggle, free of fever or frostbite. The silence is not too deep, the hut not too still. Someone, always someone, says, thanks be to God. They've made it, another night endured, another dawn claimed. The day ahead will be hard, but it will be lived, and that is everything. As you lie beneath your warm covers, dear listener, in a room sealed against the wind, with light at your fingertips and steady heat at your side, pause for a moment. Take a breath and think of those who whispered into the dark, uncertain if morning would come. When it did, they smiled, kissed foreheads, stirred the embers, and sent their gratitude rising with the smoke. Let their world cradle you now, soft and sacred, like a prayer murmured in the night. Picture the hut, the sway of the vigil candle, the weight of a cross in your hand. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every prayer was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the hum of the wind, the flicker of the candle, the whisper of a family's faith fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now as we linger in this holy corner of history, ready to dream of their enduring light. As the chill of history wraps around you like a worn woolen cloak, let the flicker of modern life dim and step softly into the opulent yet perilous halls of Tudor England. Tonight, We leave behind the frostbitten huts and muddy fields of the peasantry. Instead, we tread the marbled corridors of royalty, where whispers carry more weight than footsteps and the sting of betrayal cuts deeper than any winter wind. Welcome to Midnight History, where we unravel the story of Anne Boleyn, a woman who rose from obscurity to the pinnacle of power, only to fall with devastating swiftness. Her life was a flame that illuminated an empire, only to be extinguished by the hand that once held hers in passion. Close your eyes, dear listener, and let the past unfold, its shadows dancing like candlelight on a palace wall. Anne Boleyn was not born to wear a crown. Around 1501, likely at Hever Castle in the rolling green of Kent, she entered the world as the daughter of Thomas Boleyn, an ambitious diplomat, and Elizabeth Howard, a noblewoman with lineage but no royal blood. The Boleyns were respected but not exalted, their place in the English hierarchy modest. By all expectations, Anne's future was predictable. A respectable marriage, perhaps to a minor noble, a life of quiet duty. But Anne was no ordinary woman. She was a spark in a world that preferred embers, her spirit too bright to be contained by tradition. From childhood, Anne stood apart. She was sharp-witted, quick-tongued, and remarkably educated for a girl of her time. Her father, recognizing her potential, sent her abroad to refine her talents. First to the Netherlands, then to the dazzling courts of France, where she served under Queen Claude and the intellectual Marguerite of Navarre. In these vibrant settings, Anne absorbed the arts of diplomacy, conversation, and strategy. She learned to navigate power, to wield charm like a weapon, and to hold her own in rooms filled with ambition. When she returned to England in her early 20s, she was no mere courtier. She was a force. Her presence electric, her mind a blade owned by experience. Anne was not the quintessential English beauty, with pale skin and golden hair. Her dark hair, expressive eyes, and slender frame defied convention, yet she captivated with an allure that was both bold and enigmatic. She spoke French fluently, dressed with a daring elegance inspired by continental courts, and carried herself with a confidence that turned heads. Her intelligence was her sharpest asset, a velvet-sheathed dagger that could charm or challenge. It was this brilliance, this refusal to fade into the background, that caught the eye of a king. Henry VIII was a monarch accustomed to devotion. A golden prince turned commanding king, he was used to women vying for his favor. But Anne did not bend. She teased, she sparred, she held her ground, her defiance a magnet to a man who thrived on conquest. When Henry offered her the role of mistress, a position many would have accepted, Anne refused. If he wanted her, he would have to make her queen. This bold demand sparked the most perilous romance in English history, a love that would reshape a nation. Henry was already married to Catherine of Aragon, his queen of nearly 2 decades. A Spanish princess beloved by the people, Catherine had given Henry a daughter, Mary, but no surviving son, a failure that gnawed at the king's ambition for a male heir. Anne, young and vibrant, offered hope, fertility, a fresh start, a chance to secure his dynasty. To win her, Henry set out to move mountains. He sought an annulment from the Pope, claiming his marriage to Catherine was invalid. When Rome resisted, Henry took a radical step, breaking from the Catholic Church and establishing the Church of England with himself as its head. This seismic shift, driven by love, lust, or legacy, tore England from centuries of religious tradition, all to place a crown on Anne's head. In January 1533, Henry and Anne married in secret. By June, she was crowned Queen of England in a grand ceremony at Westminster Abbey, her dark hair adorned with jewels, her presence radiant under the weight of gold and velvet. The court glittered, but beneath the splendor, whispers of discontent stirred. Anne was not universally adored. Where Catherine had been pious and reserved, Anne was bold, outspoken, and unapologetically political. Her rise had fractured the kingdom, earning her enemies who saw her not as a queen but as a usurper. Her French manners, sharp wit, and ambition were held against her, her power a fragile thing built on the king's favor. and one unspoken condition: a male heir. That September, Anne gave birth to a healthy, bright-eyed girl with her father's red hair. They named her Elizabeth, a name that would one day echo through history. But Henry's disappointment was palpable. A daughter, not the son he craved. Anne, ever resilient, promised more children, but her subsequent pregnancies ended in miscarriage, each loss eroding her security. The court's loyalties shifted, and Henry's gaze wandered to Jane Seymour, a quiet, demure lady-in-waiting who embodied everything Anne was not. The king, once enchanted, grew distant, his passion cooling as Anne's star began to fade. Anne fought to reclaim her place, leveraging her charm and political acumen, but danger loomed. Thomas Cromwell, once her ally in pushing religious reforms, became her adversary. Their visions clashed. Anne wanted dissolved monastery funds to aid the poor, while Cromwell sought them for the crown. Henry, restless and desperate for a son, needed an escape from a marriage that no longer served him. Rumors, venomous and calculated, began to spread. Whispers of adultery, incest, even treason. Anne, once celebrated for her wit, was recast as a seductress, a threat to the realm. In May 1536, Anne was arrested and taken to the Tower of London, her world collapsing with terrifying speed. She faced trial before a court of men who owed their positions to her downfall. The evidence was shaky, conflicting testimonies, vague accusations, but truth was irrelevant. The verdict was preordained. Anne defended herself with eloquence and dignity, her words sharp and poised, but they could not sway a tide already turned against her. She was sentenced to death by beheading, her fate sealed by the king she had once captivated. On May 19, 1536, Anne walked to the scaffold with a composure that silenced the crowd. Dressed in a gray gown with a red underskirt the color of martyrdom, she carried herself with grace. She spoke no accusations, offering only praise for Henry, her voice steady. With a single stroke of a French swordsman's blade, she was gone, her body laid in an unmarked grave within the tower's walls. To some, she was forgotten. To others, she became a martyr, a symbol of ambition and sacrifice. But Anne's story did not end with her death. Her daughter Elizabeth, dismissed as a disappointment, would rise to become one of England's greatest monarchs. As Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, she ruled with intellect, strength, and vision, forging a golden age. Anne's name was rarely spoken in her daughter's court, but her legacy echoed in Elizabeth's reign, a testament to a woman whose fire reshaped a nation. Through her daughter, Anne lived on, not just as a mother, but as a force that altered history's course. Anne Boleyn's rise was dazzling, her fall brutal, but her impact enduring. She helped birth a new church, a new England, and a new archetype of queenship, one defined by courage and conviction. Her life was a spark that ignited change, even as it burned out too soon. As you drift toward sleep, dear listener, nestled in the quiet warmth of your own world, let Anne's story linger. Think of the woman who stood toe-to-toe with a king, who loved with reckless passion, who dreamed with defiant ambition. Her flame, though extinguished, left a light that still shines through the centuries. Let her world enfold you now, soft and regal, like a velvet cloak heavy with history. Picture the marble halls, the flicker of torchlight, the weight of a crown on dark hair. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into her time, where every whisper was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the echo of courtly music, the rustle of silk, the murmur of a queen's resolve fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now, as we linger in this radiant corner of history, ready to dream of Anne's immortal fire. Dear my closed friends, as the quiet of night settles around you like a familiar blanket, let the hum of the present fade and drift across the vast ocean of time. Tonight, we stand on a cold, moonlit harbor, wrapped in silence and the weight of revolution. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. The air carries the sharp tang of salt, the chill of a December night. We are in Boston, Massachusetts, in the year 1773, on the cusp of an act that will ripple far beyond this harbor, echoing through the centuries. Welcome to Midnight History, where we witness the moment ordinary men turned tea into a declaration of defiance. Boston is a city on edge. The harbor lies still, its waters black as ink under a sky dusted with stars. 3 British ships, the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver, rest silently at anchor, their holds heavy with cargo. Not gold or gunpowder, but tea. Hundreds of crates, each one a symbol of distant control. To the casual observer, tea might seem trivial, a simple beverage. But in these wooden chests brews a storm, one that has been gathering for years. The American colonies have chafed under the tightening grip of British rule, their voices silenced in a parliament thousands of miles away. Taxes, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, and now the Tea Act have piled one atop another, each a reminder of power imposed without consent. The Tea Act of 1773, designed to prop up the struggling East India Company, feels like the final insult, a law that forces colonists to buy British tea while undercutting local merchants. To Bostonians, it's not just about tea, it's about dignity, about the right to have a say in their own lives. On this night, December 16, 1773, the city holds its breath. No thunder rumbles, no armies march, but a different kind of storm is forming, one born of resolve and quiet courage. Through the narrow alleys and shadowed doorways of Boston, figures begin to emerge, dozens, then scores. They are ordinary men, shopkeepers, blacksmiths, carpenters, farmers. Their faces are darkened with soot or charcoal, not to hide their identities, but to send a message. Blankets and cloaks drape their shoulders, feathers tucked into hats or woven into hair, a nod to the Mohawk, a symbol of defiance against British rule. Tonight, they are not subjects of the crown. Tonight, they are something new, something unbound. No torches light their path, no chants break the silence, no banners proclaim their intent. Only the soft creak of boots on wooden docks and the sound of breath in the crisp winter air mark their approach. They move with purpose, their steps measured, their hearts steady. They board the 3 ships in eerie quiet, their presence a force stronger than any shout. The crews, outnumbered and perhaps sympathetic, offer no resistance. There are no blows, no shattered glass, no plundered goods, only the singular focus of their mission. The men pry open the crates, the wood groaning under their tools. The scent of tea fills the air, earthy, slightly sweet, a faint promise of warmth that will never be fulfilled. One by one, they tip the chests overboard. The first splash breaks the silence, followed by another, then another. 342 crates, thousands of pounds of tea, cascade into the harbor. The water churns, swirling with the leaves of empire steeping in defiance. The harbor becomes a vast, bitter teapot, its surface clouded with the debris of rebellion. Not a single cup is poured, not a drop consumed. This is no act of theft or chaos. It's a statement, deliberate and disciplined. On the docks, a small crowd gathers, their faces lit by moonlight. Some whisper cheers, their voices hushed but fierce. Others stand with tears in their eyes, knowing the weight of what has been done. A few clench their fists, their silence louder than any cry. They understand, this is not just a protest, but a declaration, a line drawn in the water that cannot be uncrossed. By morning, the harbor is a stew of damp leaves and salt, the air heavy with the scent of soaked tea. Word of the act spreads like wildfire, carried not by telegrams or radios, but by voices, letters, and the urgency of shared conviction. Taverns abuzz with talk, homes hum with debate, and the news races southward to New York, Philadelphia, and beyond. The response is as divided as the colonies themselves. Among the patriots, a quiet pride swells. Ordinary men, sons, husbands, fathers, have stood against the mightiest empire in the world without firing a shot or breaking a window. They didn't attack, they spoke, their message delivered in the language of tea and silence. For those dreaming of independence, the Boston Tea Party is a spark, a proof that courage can shift the course of history. Among loyalists, shock and dread take hold. They see chaos in the act, a dangerous defiance that could unravel the fragile ties to Britain. Some whisper, "What have we done?" Others fear the consequences, knowing the crown will not let such a challenge go unanswered. Governor Thomas Hutchinson, ensconced in his grand home, is livid. His authority has been mocked, his city thrust into open rebellion. Across the Atlantic, when King George III learns of the act, a chill settles over the royal court. This was no reckless mob, no outburst of drunken rage. It was disciplined, deliberate, unified. A rebellion not of fists, but of purpose. That unity, more than the tea itself, sends a shiver through the empire. The British response is swift and severe. The coercive axe, branded the intolerable axe by the colonists, descend like a hammer. Boston's port is closed, its lifeblood of trade choked off. British soldiers flood the streets, their red coats a stark reminder of authority. The acts are meant to isolate Boston, to cow the colonies into submission through punishment and fear. But the crown miscalculates. Instead of breaking the colonies apart, the acts forge them together. Wagons laden with grain, cloth, and firewood roll into Boston from neighboring colonies. Letters of solidarity pour in from Virginia, Pennsylvania, and the Carolinas, their words brimming with defiance and support. In punishing one city, Britain has kindled a shared resolve, a bond that stretches from New England to the southern plantations. The colonies, once divided by distance and difference, begin to see themselves as one. A single night, a single act, has done what years of pamphlets and speeches could not. As winter tightens its grip, Boston endures under the blockade, its people hungry but unbowed. They have poured their defiance into the sea, transforming a humble commodity into a symbol of resistance. No one died that night, no buildings burned, but something was born. A belief that freedom could be claimed not with bloodshed, but with courage, that change could begin, not with violence, but with purpose. The Boston Tea Party, quiet as it was, became a clarion call, a whisper that grew into a roar, setting the stage for revolution. As you lie in the warmth of your bed, dear listener, cradled by the quiet of your own world, let this moment linger. History does not always thunder. Sometimes it speaks softly, through the crack of a crate, the splash of tea, the silence of resolve. The men of Boston, with their soot-streaked faces and steady hands, proved that ordinary people could challenge an empire. Their act was a seed planted in a cold harbor that would grow into a nation. Let their world wrap around you now, soft and salty, like a breeze from a revolutionary shore. Picture the moonlit docks, the ripple of tea in the water, the weight of a feather in your hand. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every splash was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the creak of the ships, the whisper of defiance, the hum of a harbor's rebellion fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now, as we linger in this revolutionary corner of history, ready to dream of their enduring spark. Hey, my friends, as the stillness of night wraps you in its gentle embrace, let the weight of the day slip away and drift across the tides of history to a harbor still heavy with the scent of rebellion. Tonight we return to Boston, Massachusetts, in the wake of a silent revolution that transformed tea into a symbol of defiance. Close your eyes and feel the chill of a 1774 winter, the air sharp with salt and the promise of change. Welcome to Midnight History, where we stand in the aftermath of the Boston Tea Party, witnessing a city under siege and a people forging a new path toward unity. The harbor lies quiet, its waters no longer swirling with tea but bearing the weight of consequence. The 342 chests dumped into Boston Harbor on December 16, 1773, have sunk, but their ripples have reached far beyond the docks. Across the Atlantic, news of the Tea Party travels on swift ships, landing in London like a thunderclap. To King George III and Parliament, this is no petty act of vandalism. It's rebellion, a brazen insult from subjects who have dared to challenge the might of the British Empire. They have thrown royal property into the sea, defying the authority of the crown. The response is not negotiation or understanding, but a calculated display of power, designed to crush the spark of defiance before it becomes a flame. The British government unveils the Coercive Acts, a series of laws so harsh that the colonists rename them the Intolerable Acts, their very title a cry of resistance. These 4 measures, cold and unyielding, are meant to bring Boston to its knees. The first, the Boston Port Act, takes effect on June 1, 1774, sealing the harbor shut. No ships may enter or leave, no trade may flow, no goods may sustain the city's lifeblood. Boston, a hub of merchants, fishermen, and shipwrights, is economically strangled overnight. The docks, once alive with the creak of ropes and the shouts of sailors, fall silent. Wharves stand empty, their boards gathering frost. Hunger creeps into homes like a fog, its presence felt in every empty pantry and tightened belt. The punishment extends beyond the sea. The Massachusetts Government Act strips Boston of its right to self-rule. Town meetings, a cornerstone of colonial democracy, are banned unless approved by royal officials. Elected councils are replaced by appointed loyalists, stripping citizens of their voice. This is not just a law but a theft of liberty, a deliberate rollback of the freedoms Bostonians have held dear. The Administration of Justice Act follows, granting British soldiers and officials accused of crimes the right to be tried in England, far from colonial juries. Colonists dub it the Murder Act, fearing it shields redcoats from accountability, allowing them to harm with impunity. Finally, the Quartering Act forces colonists to house British troops, not only in public buildings, but in private homes if necessary. The redcoats are no longer passers-by, they are fixtures, their presence a constant reminder of subjugation. Boston is silenced, its streets patrolled, its people placed under a royal microscope. Parliament believes these acts will quell the rebellion, restore order, and fracture the colony's resolve. The Crown expects fear to drive Boston to submission, isolating it as a warning to others. But instead of breaking the city, the Intolerable Acts ignite a fire, one that burns not with destruction, but with unity. Word of Boston's plight spreads swiftly, carried along rough roads and icy rivers by riders, letters, and whispered conversations. From the rocky coasts of New Hampshire to the plantations of Georgia, the colonies listen, and they do not turn away. They turn toward Boston, their hearts stirred by a shared sense of injustice. Wagons begin to roll into the city, laden with grain, flour, salted fish, and wheels of cheese. Virginians send barrels of corn, their field's bounty a gesture of solidarity. New Yorkers drive herds of livestock north, their hoofbeats a rhythm of support. South Carolinians ship rice, its golden grains a lifeline for a city under siege. Even the smallest hamlets contribute, blankets from Connecticut weavers, candles from Rhode Island chandlers, books and prayers from Pennsylvania Quakers. Boston dumped the tea. Boston bears the punishment. But Boston will not face it alone. Letters flood the city, scratched out by candlelight in homes across the colonies. Quills dance across parchment, inking messages of fury and fellowship. Newspapers print bold headlines, their pages passed from hand to hand. Pamphlets, sharp and urgent, flutter through towns like leaves in a storm. Colonial assemblies convene, their debates echoing with a new clarity. If Boston can be silenced, so can we. The 13 colonies, once loosely tied by geography and trade, begin to feel the pulse of a shared cause. They are no longer just neighbors, they are allies, bound by a belief that liberty is worth defending. In September 1774, a historic gathering takes place in Philadelphia. The First Continental Congress brings together representatives from 12 colonies, men of different faiths, accents, and visions, united by a common purpose. They sit at a single table, their voices weaving a tapestry of resistance. After weeks of debate, they reach a bold consensus. They will defy the Intolerable Acts. They pledge to boycott British goods, to arm for defense, and to watch closely as events unfold. What began as sympathy for Boston has grown into solidarity. a movement rooted not in violence but in resolve. The Tea Party, a single night of silent protest, has become the spark for a broader awakening. In Boston, the days are long, the nights longer. Redcoats patrol the cobblestone streets, their boots a steady drumbeat of control. Food is scarce, firewood scarcer, and the harbor remains locked in Britain's grip. Yet the city endures, its people holding their heads high. Each wagon that arrives, each letter that slips through the blockade, carries the same message. You are not alone. The British sought to isolate Boston, to make it a cautionary tale. Instead, they have forged a bond that stretches across mountains and rivers, uniting colonies in a shared defiance. The punishment meant to divide has only strengthened their resolve, turning whispers of rebellion into a chorus. Beneath this growing unity, something deeper stirs, a new identity, fragile but taking root. The people of Boston, Virginia, and Pennsylvania are no longer just colonists or subjects. They are beginning to see themselves as Americans, a name that carries the weight of possibility. It's a tentative idea, still forming in the crucible of hardship, but it grows stronger with every act of solidarity, every shared sacrifice. The Tea Party was not just a protest, it was a birth, the first breath of a nation yet to come. As you lie beneath your warm blankets, dear listener, imagine a Boston home lit by a single candle. Its shutters drawn against the cold. A family gathers around a sparse table, their meal meager, a crust of bread, a bowl of thin soup. The fire burns low, its embers struggling against the chill. But on the table sits a letter from New Jersey, its words a lifeline. A crate of flour from Maryland rests in the corner, a gift of survival. A small sack of rice from Charleston promises another day. They are hungry, their hands rough from labor, but they are not forgotten. Outside, soldiers march, their presence a shadow over the city. Inside, in the quiet rhythm of their hearts, hope beats louder than fear, fueled by the knowledge that they stand with others. The port may be closed, but the people are opening their arms. The future is stirring, its shape unclear but its promise bright. Freedom, still a distant star, is beginning to rise, its light born in a harbor and carried by a people who refuse to bow. Let this world cradle you now, soft and resolute, like a letter sealed with courage. Picture the snow-dusted streets, the glow of a candle, the weight of a shared dream in your hands. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every act of unity was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the creak of a wagon, the rustle of a letter, the whisper of a new nation fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now, as we linger in this revolutionary corner of history, ready to dream of Boston's unyielding spirit. As the quiet of night enfolds you and your thoughts drift into the gentle darkness, let us step to the edge of history, where whispers of defiance turn to the roar of war and ordinary hands clutch muskets under a moonlit sky. Tonight we move beyond the silent protest of tea in Boston's harbor and the weight of punitive laws. We cross a threshold where farmers, blacksmiths, and school teachers become the architects of revolution. It begins with a held breath, a finger trembling on a trigger, and a single shot that changes the world. Welcome to Midnight History, where we stand in April 1775 on the cusp of the American Revolution. The year is 1775, and the colonies are a powder keg. The First Continental Congress has convened. Its delegates, men like George Washington, John Adams, and Patrick Henry, speaking with bold resolve. They've penned letters of protest, pledged unity, and warned of resistance against British oppression. But words alone cannot stem the tide of tension. The British, sensing the colonies gathering like storm clouds, decide to act first. In Boston, still reeling under the intolerable axe, redcoats prepare to march. Their mission: seize colonial weapons and ammunition stored in Concord, a small town just beyond the city, and crush the growing rebellion before it can spread. But the colonists are vigilant, their eyes sharp in the darkness. Under the cover of night, Paul Revere rides, his horse's hooves pounding through the April chill. His breath clouds in the crisp air as he carries a warning. The British are coming. Lanterns flicker in the steeple of Boston's Old North Church, one if by land, two if by sea, signaling the redcoats' approach. From door to door, whispers spread like wildfire, rousing militiamen from their beds. William Dawes and others join the ride, their messages echoing through farms and hamlets. The countryside stirs, its people readying themselves for a confrontation they've long dreaded yet prepared for. By the time dawn breaks, the stage is set, the air heavy with anticipation. On April 19, 1775, in the early morning light, British troops, some 700 strong, march into Lexington, a quiet village west of Boston. On the village green they are met by a small band of colonial militiamen, just 70 or so. These are not professional soldiers but ordinary men, farmers, shopkeepers, fathers and sons. They wear no uniforms, only homespun coats and weathered hats. Their muskets are old, their training minimal, some barely more than boys gripping their fathers' rifles. Across from them stand the redcoats, disciplined and formidable, their bayonets gleaming in the dawn. For a moment the world holds its breath, the silence thick with possibility. Then a shot, sharp and sudden, shattering the stillness like a crack of lightning. No one knows who fired first. Was it a nervous colonist, a twitchy soldier, or a misfire lost in the morning fog? The truth is swallowed by history, but the sound is unmistakable. Muskets roar, smoke clouds the air, and chaos erupts on the green. When the haze clears, 8 colonists lie dead, their blood staining the grass. More are wounded, their groans mingling with the cries of retreat. The British, unscathed, press on to Concord, their mission unfinished. But in that fleeting clash, the world shifts. The American Revolution has begun. In Concord, the British find little of the arsenal they sought. The colonists, forewarned, have hidden their powder and shot, their cannons buried in fields or stashed in barns. But the militias are gathering, their numbers swelling as men pour in from surrounding towns. They are not an army but a force of neighbors, brothers, and friends, united by a shared resolve. They know the land, the stone walls, the winding paths, the dense woods, and they use it to their advantage. As the British begin their retreat to Boston, they face a gauntlet of fire. Militiamen, hidden behind trees and fences, take aim, their muskets flashing in the April light. The road back becomes a running battle, a storm of bullets and defiance. By day's end, hundreds lie dead or wounded, British and colonial alike. The cost of this first clash written in blood. The British march to assert dominance, to show the colonies the price of rebellion. But it is the colonists who find their voice, speaking not in words but in gunpowder and courage. Boston, already a city under siege, braces for what comes next. British reinforcements flood in, fortifications rise, and the port remains closed, its docks silent. Yet beyond the city's edges, the countryside hums with purpose. Militias drill in fields, farmers clean their muskets, and women sew cartridges by candlelight. The spark of Lexington and Concord has ignited a fire that will not be easily quenched. News of the battles spreads like a gale. In New York, Philadelphia, and Charleston, newspapers print bold headlines, their ink still wet with urgency. Letters cross the Atlantic, carrying tales of defiance to London's stunned elite. How could a ragtag band of farmers stand against the empire's finest? The answer lies in the months before, in the tea tossed into Boston's harbor, the intolerable acts that choked liberty, the unity forged in shared outrage. The colonists asked to be heard, their pleas ignored by a distant king. When words failed, they turned to action, their resolve tempered by years of frustration. In doing so, they achieved something remarkable. They began to imagine a new kind of nation, one not yet defined by borders or flags, but alive in spirit. The people no longer speak as mere subjects of the crown. They call themselves Americans, a name that carries the weight of possibility. It's a fragile identity, messy and uncertain, but undeniable. The colonies transform, their militias organizing, their leaders reconvening. The Second Continental Congress gathers, its debates charged with the urgency of war. Supplies are stockpiled, alliances whispered, and the machinery of resistance takes shape. This is no longer a protest but a cause, a movement that will reshape the world. The tea, long since dissolved in Boston's harbor, leaves a legacy that lingers. That quiet act of defiance was not a war cry but a seed planted in the cold of December and sprouting in the blood of April. It proved that ordinary people, men with calloused hands, women with steadfast hearts, could challenge an empire. The shot at Lexington, whether accidental or deliberate, was the spark that lit the flame. What followed was no accident, but a choice. Every step, every stand, every fire kindled in the name of liberty, a deliberate act of bravery. Revolutions are not born in palaces or throne rooms. They rise from muddy fields, crowded taverns, and candlelit homes. They are forged by farmers who pause at dawn to load their muskets, by mothers who send sons to fight, by children who watch history roll past on creaking carts. On that April day, the world tilted, not because a king decreed it, but because common people, on a common green, did something extraordinary. They stood their ground, and in doing so, they changed the course of history. As you rest beneath quiet skies, dear listener, imagine a lantern swinging in a church tower, its light a beacon in the night. Picture a rider galloping through the darkness, his breath a cloud of purpose. Feel the weight of a musket in your hands, the chill of a field at dawn. The men and women of 1775 were not seeking glory. They were seeking a voice, a future, a chance to be free. Their courage, born in the silence of a tea-soaked harbor and baptized in the fire of Lexington, lives on in the nation they began. Let their world cradle you now, soft and resolute, like the glow of a lantern in the dark. Picture the frost-kissed green, the flash of a musket, the weight of a new dream in your heart. There's no need to cling to the present, no need to resist the pull of sleep. Let midnight history carry you deeper into their time, where every shot was a triumph. Close your eyes, dear listener. Let the hoofbeats of a rider, the crack of a musket, the whisper of a newborn nation fade into silence. Sleep is calling, gentle and warm. Let it take you now as we linger in this revolutionary corner of history, ready to dream of their enduring spark.